This is Do It For a Living, your source for inside information on the future of automotive performance.
You know, we take our time to do it right, which is why we're never really first to market, much to the dismay of our customers and stakeholders. But for me, that's fine because it means that we're releasing a better product.
What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It For a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now.
Welcome back to another episode of Do It For a Living. I'm Kevin Dubois. Today we've got Matt Beenen from GrimmSpeed. He's the president of the company. GrimmSpeed makes a lot of components for Subaru primarily, but they also have parts for Evos, Genesis, GTR, BMW, a little bit of everything. And so they've focused primarily on the Subaru stuff, but they've come quite a ways in the last couple of years. So I've actually been buying their boost controllers for Evos for I think as long as they've been offering them. But the company has grown really rapidly, and I think this is going to be a good story to kind of hear how they've done that. So, Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Awesome. So, Matt, why don't we go ahead and get started? Just go ahead and tell us, where is your background? You know, how did you get involved in cars? And kind of take us all the way up to, your involvement with GrimmSpeed.
Sure. So I guess, I'll kind of start from when I was a kid, because it sort of all really did start there. I hesitate to use the term mechanically inclined to describe a 6-year-old, but I was certainly always mechanically interested. Always, building forts, playing with Connects, Legos, making things at home. And I think that my parents kind of identified early on that my obsession with building things and understanding how things worked wasn't necessarily normal for a kid, or went beyond what was normal for a kid my age. My mom was a mechanical engineer, so I think she worked to encourage that. And when my friends were getting Game Boys or whatever else was cool at the time, I would get a tool set for my birthday. Maybe with an old vacuum cleaner that my mom had cut the cord off of, and I would, I remember sitting in the living room floor, with my tools and the vacuum cleaner on top of a sheet, presumably to make the cleanup easier, and just taking it apart and being fascinated with, the pulleys and the belts and the motors. And, at the time, of course, I didn't really understand it, but I remember being fascinated with all of the moving pieces and how they all worked together. So that kind of is kind of a theme even just to this day. I'm sure that, those gifts, I suppose in hindsight, where there was some economical motivation there as well. But it worked really well. And so I was always into cars. I had Hot Wheels cars, RC cars. And then, I as I became old enough to be driving real cars, that was when, my obsession for vehicle technology began. And when you're 15, 16 years old, it felt like, all of my friends were into cars, and we were all, basically destroying whatever car we had access to. And when my friends, found other hobbies years later, it never changed for me. So,
still a kid at heart.
Yeah. And my friends and my friends and my family, they would always kind of joke about it, how the rest of my friends were growing up and I wasn't. And, that was fine with me. So, I ended up becoming a mechanical engineer. I went to school in Union College in Schenectady, New York, pursuing a degree in mechanical engineering. They had the Society of Automotive Engineers sponsors a number of collegiate design series, they call them, and one of those is Baja. You've also probably heard of,
Mini Baja.
Yep. And so the school that I attended, we just had Baja, and so I kind of got involved in that right away because it was a really, it's a really tangible outlet, and that was kind of the way that I was familiar with learning. It was a small school, so you kind of had the opportunity to get as involved as you wanted to really quickly, and sort of I kind of just jumped off the deep end with my college roommate, and we ended up more or less running the team, and we made it to competition, and it was just a really fun way to learn about teamwork and budgeting and designing something that actually needed to be manufactured and tested and and compete with. And so for me, really, college was just the classroom aspect of my degree was more or less a supplement to that experience.
I can second that. I did Formula SAE, and it's very similar to the Mini Baja, and it's you learn so much in that program that it's amazing. Like there's not a single class that even compares to it. So
yeah, and it was. I remember at the time thinking, I know Baja is a little bit less, I guess, technically advanced than Formula is. But I remember thinking at the time, being at competition and something breaks and you drag the car back to the trailer and weld it back together or whatever it was, and thinking, man, this is, really crude and fun, but, I'm really intimidated by getting out to the real world and having to be, a real engineer. And kind of the more that I'm, exposed to that, the more I realized how accurate of an experience
definitely
that really was. Sometimes you're just tackling challenges with the tools that you happen to have on you at the time or whatever it is.
You did that in New York then, so right? Is that where you grew up?
No, I actually grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Okay, and so that was the school you had picked that was out of state.
Yeah, and it was just, I knew I wanted to go to a small school with a strong engineering program, and I wanted to just see a different part of the country, so that seemed like an opportunity to do that.
Okay. So you finished school, you participated in Mini Baja, engineering degree, and where did you go from there?
So I graduated, and I kind of was I was looking for, I guess, a more traditional engineering role, something. Cars were a hobby, and so I wanted to have one of those cush engineering jobs where I'd get to, pursue my automotive hobby on the weekends and would have the finances to do that. So I ended up moving back to Minneapolis, actually, sort of just by chance, to BAE Systems, which is a defense contractor. And I was a systems engineer there for a couple of years. And we developed high-tech weapon systems, and I did a lot of work in automated munitions assembly. So it was it was a really cool job. I got to work with the Office of Naval Research and go out on aircraft carriers and go to Top Gun and work with people assembling munitions there. So kind of on paper, it was great, but it wasn't what I was passionate about. And so on the weekends, I was I bought a 2006 STI, which was kind of like my dream car, and had been modifying that kind of like most people do, and I autocrossed it on the weekends. And in doing so, I became familiar with GrimmSpeed. I became active in our local Subaru club, met a couple of GrimmSpeed employees, and kind of just palled around with them. And then on our local MN Subaru forum, I saw one day that GrimmSpeed was looking for a mechanical engineer, and I kind of breezed past it. And I think, later that night, I thought maybe I should, I'm happy with what I'm doing, but maybe I should explore that a little bit further. And so I reached out and I talked to Chad, who was the engineer at the time, and Justin Grimm, and kind of had some nice conversations with them, and decided that it was really my, probably not my only opportunity, but a really nice opportunity to try to pursue cars, automotive industry as a career. So, I just decided to take the leap, I suppose.
Okay, so GrimmSpeed at that time was not a very big company, was it?
No, it was. So at that time, it was, I think, probably 6 or 7 employees. It was primarily a services business. A lot of people, if you've heard of GrimmSpeed, back then it was porting and polishing and ceramic coating.
And what kind of time frame was this?
So this was in the spring of 2011.
Okay, so maybe five years ago or so.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so 7 people, but you're quitting BAE, which obviously is going to have 401k and pension and health benefits and all the good pay, to go to a real small company that probably can't compete on any of those. But it's a passion, though, right? So you're quitting a stable, essentially government-funded job to go do the essentially, I don't know how to say, small business, right? High risk, very little return, right?
You just phrased that in about the same way that just about all of my family friends, my mentors, my girlfriend at the time phrased that same question. And it's really hard to explain to somebody, that gut feeling like that, look, I have to pursue this. I have to try it. I was confident in my skills. Look, what's the worst case scenario is is it that it fails and I find another mediocre engineering job. So, it just felt like kind of a very unique opportunity that I had to pursue.
Okay. And GrimmSpeed's in Minnesota, right?
Yep.
Was the BAE facility also in Minnesota that you were working at?
Yeah. So I had actually at BAE, I had just bought my first house. And so that was the only thing that made me a little bit nervous, because beyond that, I didn't really have any responsibilities.
Okay.
But yeah. So BAE and GrimmSpeed are actually pretty close.
Okay, cool. Okay, so take us from you're working as an engineer. How did you become president? So guide us through that path.
Yeah, so I started working at GrimmSpeed right away. I learned that I was not going to be just another mechanical engineer. They wanted me to kind of manage all of our product development and whatnot. So I was doing that and designing our products, and it was a really interesting kind of culmination of my experience in Baja, my passion for cars, and my experience with BAE, which is a much larger business, and I really had an idea of kind of how a legitimate engineering group functions. Mm-hmm. So we kind of put the pedal down and hired another engineer pretty quickly. We moved from a hobbyist, I'll call it CAD package, to purchasing seats of SolidWorks. We bought a Faro arm for 3D scanning, and really kind of built an engineering process.
Okay.
And so we were pumping out products. I think this part of my systems engineer and kind of my Baja experiences, I'm really interested in understanding and participating in the big picture of something.
Yeah.
Not just designing products or just marketing or just customer service. And so I expressed that interest to Justin Grimm. And one of the things that GrimmSpeed was built on and is built on is to provide opportunities to our employees to pursue the things that they're really interested in. So I guess the first thing I did was I was interested in photo and video. And so Justin actually bought a nice DSLR camera and a MacBook, and said, all right, you're the video guy. And so I started making some of our early product release videos. And that's kind of the way that it all snowballed, is just continuing to sort of take on additional responsibilities, more or less out of just my interest in learning.
Okay. And so why did he have you do photo and video when that's not really your background or skill set? Just so that you could learn it? Is that the whole reasoning?
I think it was partially so that I could learn it, but also because kind of the way that our business is that we really focus very heavily on our products and our product development process. And even to this day, we don't have a marketing employee or a traditional sales employee.
Okay.
And so sharing that engineering process is a really important part of how we kind of communicate and work with the community. And so to have an engineer that can do that and that can communicate those things in kind of a more interesting way than just your traditional white paper sort of thing, mm-hmm. I think really added a lot of value to our marketing. Okay, so
you're not just taking pictures of the product out at the racetrack. You're taking pictures of the development work you're doing, right? So that's the I guess the angle you were taking on that.
Yeah. I guess I should have been more specific there. Yeah. So product photography in its traditional sense is something different, but taking pictures of when we're using the Faro arm, or taking video, or going to our aluminum foundry and shooting those people and taking video there and editing it in a kind of a fun way, mm-hmm. As kind of more of a promotional tool, but also just to show, hey, look, we're not cutting any corners. There's no kind of black magic here. We're just doing the right thing.
I mean, I'm really interested in the systems engineering part of this too, because that's what I did at Lockheed, and also mechanical background. So systems engineering, for people who aren't aware of it, is really, you're not designing product. You're looking at exactly how it says, a system as a whole. So you look at all the different components and how they work together, and that's a very quick description of what systems engineering is. And so you're doing that at BAE. I mean, but you had to have been kind of for lack of a better term, an entry-level engineer, right? So you were observing it from the bottom of the totem pole. Is that correct?
That's correct, but actually, so I was more specifically a system safety engineer.
Okay.
And so the safety and reliability group, even at BAE, which has, many thousands of employees, was really small. And it was it was myself and two other guys. And the two guys were kind of were mentors to me, more or less. And it was really kind of got thrown into the deep end there. And I was, so in a short period of time, I was the lead safety engineer on a couple of projects.
Okay.
And so it was kind of it was a crash course.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I was given a lot of opportunity there, I think, just based on the fact that our headcount was so low.
Okay. And so you're able to take that experience of understanding, for safety, maybe you're looking at all the different components of whatever vehicle or, munitions device that you're working on. You're looking at all the different components and how they work together as a whole. And you're applying that kind of mentality to GrimmSpeed, right? That's kind of what you're doing there.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yep.
And so, I mean, you've got you just kind of touched on how you're doing your marketing with working it into your design work. What else did you do to kind of bring out the systems in the business to make it grow? I mean, it's obviously worked very well, right?
Yeah. So I think, like I said, there wasn't any secret kind of one thing that we did that really, I think, was the main contributor to our success, but it was having this overall and really kind of an engineering-esque feel to everything that we did. Customer service. Our engineering team works with customer service on a regular basis, and we did a few years ago to make sure that if you call GrimmSpeed, anybody that answers the phone is going to be able to help you with your technical questions.
Okay.
And our engineering, we do a lot of in-house manufacturing, and so anybody that's working on our products understands, not just the importance of a weld, but the importance of how the part that he's welding fits into the car, and if it's not seated in the fixture correctly, or if he's not welding it in the correct order, it won't necessarily fit as well. And so kind of everybody in the business has an understanding of what everybody else is doing, and that causes problems sometimes, but it helps a lot. And I think we work together as kind of a more cohesive unit, because we kind of work to have everybody, understand what piece of that system they are, and so how it contributes. You
have a more versatile workforce. They can jump and help other people, and they're not just stuck in their one little niche thing they do, right?
Absolutely. And that's, as of today, we have 13 employees, including myself. So, people are still expected to wear a few different hats.
Okay. So, how did you, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but take us all the way to being president. What else had to happen to make that a thing?
I think so. I was doing our product development, and we hired another engineer, and he and I were working really, really well together in developing new products. And we also kind of so when I first started, we had a few products, and they were really products that were complementary to our porting services, the cross pipe and the up pipe, things like that.
Yep.
And I kind of came in and some of the shortcuts that we had in place, and I think those are a necessity in a really small business. We kind of cut those out and created this engineering process. And I said, we need the right tools. We need to take our time to do this correctly. And we set up relationships with much larger manufacturers, shops local to us, to help us learn the things that we didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And that really helped us bring really high-end products to market, and it still does to this day. So I think kind of putting that structure in place, I did the same thing in marketing where product releases are concerned, just kind of showing a general interest in the business. And I kind of learned a lot about myself, and that I'm really happy designing products, but I also like you mentioned, understanding the bigger picture and how the whole thing sort of works. So I think really just showing an interest in that. And I give Justin Grimm a lot of credit in identifying that and helping me pursue that and develop that. So 3 years ago, just about, myself and Matt Holmes, and if you buy parts from GrimmSpeed, or if you were around in kind of the early days, Matt is actually our executive vice president right now, and he was around when they were porting exhaust manifolds in Justin's garage. And so he and I work really closely together now. And Justin kind of identified that and said, he needed to take his foot off the pedal a little bit to focus on, some of the bigger picture things instead of the day-to-day. And he kind of more or less handed the day-to-day over to Matt Holmes and I.
Okay.
And we ran with it. And that's what you've seen in the last few years.
Okay. And so what's really, I guess a good takeaway from this is that it's not just pure hard work. It's doing smart hard work, right? And that's kind of he observed that you're taking more of a, like we said, the systems engineering approach, looking at how to improve the processes without just brute force, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Has location played a role in your success? I mean, is Minnesota really it doesn't really matter if it's, you're mailing everything, right?
Yeah. So I think, on the surface, the answer is no. I think certainly, it helps that we're an essential location as far as, being in the middle of the country, and shipping times to even our distributors or our direct customers. We've got an awesome local enthusiast group, MN Subaru, and so we're able to use them a lot of times for product testing. And it's not necessarily that we don't have access to a car internally, but it's really nice to be able to have somebody come in and we'll install a prototype part maybe, and then we'll be able to check in with them periodically and have them stop by. And I know that exists in a lot of areas. The other piece is the climate, and in Minnesota, cars really take a beating, especially in the winter with the temperature and the snow and all of the salt that we use. And so, you can pretty quickly see how an exhaust component or a flex section or a catalytic converter is going to last if you run it through a Minnesota winter. So I think that it contributes, but not in a major way.
Okay. And Minneapolis is not a small city, so you do have industry around you so that you're not like completely on your own, right?
Yeah, we have a lot of really healthy manufacturing industry.
Okay. Have you ever doubted yourself and, wondered if this doesn't work? And how do you overcome that feeling and move forward?
I guess personally, and it's kind of goes back to what I mentioned when I decided to pursue the job at GrimmSpeed, is just trying to have faith in my skill set and my kind of drive to just make things work no matter what. It's a lot easier said than done. But actually, almost 8 years ago tomorrow, I got a phone call from my mom while I was at college, and my dad had passed away unexpectedly. And in a really interesting way, that's been one of the most important things that's ever happened to me, because it kind of framed everything that I see and worry about and tackle on a daily basis in an entirely new light. And so some of these things that some people have a tendency to get really worked up about or nervous about, I kind of just think to myself, look, you've dealt with really bad days, and this really can't possibly be one of them. So it kind of that helps me get through some of these things where I start to really worry. And, as an engineer and kind of assist the systems, I have this really analytical mindset, and I can pretty quickly spin up, bad day scenarios. And that's
right.
That's kind of how I talk myself off that ledge. So,
okay. What's the worst experience you've had in business?
That's kind of a tough one. I guess having listened to a few of your podcasts, this question is kind of humbling, because I think I've been so fortunate to have not yet had a single worst experience. I suppose you could circle back in 10 or 20 years and I'll have stories for you, but there is one that kind of stands out, and it was a learning experience. But we had what we would consider friends in the industry, and they weren't competitors. They weren't really necessarily in our market, but they were in the automotive aftermarket. And this was probably 3 years ago. They were, as the story goes, they were flying through and had a long layover in Minneapolis. And so, of course, we invited them, come see the shop, meet the guys, we'll go out to lunch, whatever. They came through and we kind of gave them the grand tour. And then 6 months or so later, they started releasing Subaru exhaust components and intercoolers and stuff like that. And so that was kind of the end of that relationship. And I think it's just, we learned the lesson of just kind of being cautious with that. But with that said, we have some really great friends that we also consider competitors. And so we try not to let that color our experience too much. It's just, I guess that sticks out a little bit.
Okay. So do you were the products that they're making, are they like clones of yours, or is it just like a competing product? Do you think that they took what they learned at your facility to duplicate it? Is that what?
No, I don't think I don't think it's like a replica or a clone of our products, but certainly competing products, and in hindsight, you can look back and, I can recall some of the questions they were asking and think, all right, there was maybe more to that than I realized at the time.
Okay.
But, it happens.
Okay. So what's something you're doing right now that has you fired up?
What has us fired up? So we kind of have changed, as we've grown and been releasing more products. When we started developing products, our mindset was that whatever we're doing has to have some sort of innovative, novel feature or function that really sets it apart from everything else that's out there. And so because of that, we passed on a lot of products that would have been really fun, like, an intake or a catback exhaust. And so we've kind of circled back to those and said, okay, there are only so many ways to skin that particular cat, but we're learning that what the innovative and different thing that we offer is not necessarily a new feature, but is a really high quality product, locally manufactured, really carefully designed at an affordable price point.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really excited that we're coming out with catback exhausts here pretty soon. We're working on staged power packages for people so that, all of our parts are engineered to work together. That's how we test them and develop them.
Uh-huh.
And so it makes a lot of sense now that we're sort of filling in some of those gaps to provide kind of a package. And so along with that, we're working with a local tuner to develop off-the-shelf maps and stuff. And so I'm just really excited to see kind of our customers be able to have that full GrimmSpeed sort of experience rather than an a la carte kind of thing.
Okay, is that going to be focused on the Subaru still?
We're starting that in Subaru.
Okay.
We've begun releasing those packages already, but we are also pursuing a new market as well.
Okay. I won't push you any further on what that is, unless you want to say.
I'm happy to talk about it.
Okay.
It's kind of in our. It's actually, I guess at this point, it's in our 1-year plan. So
okay.
We're working on the Ford EcoBoost platform.
Okay. That's a good one. We've actually got one here, but we don't develop products for it. We just install products that other people make.
Sure. So we kind of identified, we could go deeper into the Subaru area and product lines, and we'll do that. But we also wanted to grow our market and kind of just have something new to experiment with. And we actually bought an EcoBoost Mustang about 1.5 years ago.
Okay.
Have been playing with that in sort of as far as development goes. We got a Focus RS now that we're toying with. So you'll see, I guess, in the first half of 2017, us start to release product lines for those vehicles.
Okay. And this is like a little bit off topic. I've wondered why the EcoBoost F-150 isn't like a incredibly huge market. I mean, it seems like there's millions of those, I would think, right?
Yeah, so it's actually funny that you mentioned that because I just my 2015 WRX, which is what we've used for all of our development, is kind of in the shop a lot right now for some of this tuning stuff and development. And so I actually just bought an EcoBoost F-150 as a daily driver, and it's an awesome car. And I've started to become kind of an enthusiast, kind of back on the enthusiast side, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And it's a lot of fun. But it's really interesting to see that I think that the Subaru market, and obviously also the Evo market, they seem to be more well developed technically than the F-50. But yeah, I think there's probably an opportunity there. There is an aftermarket there.
Yeah. So that's exactly what I thought. As us import guys, we've pushed the limits of these cars for a decade now, and I really don't feel like that the market has been pushed nearly as far on the domestic side of like technology goes. Anyway, they push them hard. They go drag racing. They're fast, but like when you really apply a good sound engineering and technological view to it, I think you can go further and a lot faster. So
yeah, there's a lot. As I'm kind of like shopping for, I guess, upgrades for my truck, the answer always seems to be, well, I can probably make that myself in the shop on a Saturday and do as good of a job or better. So right. I think there's definitely a fun opportunity there.
Okay, well, let's take a pause for a second. Owning a shop is difficult, so we created My Shop Assist to help you manage the various jobs. Whether you run a machine shop, a performance tuning shop, build off-road trucks, or even do powder coating, My Shop Assist can help. It is completely online and will help you schedule the jobs, log time on each task, track parts orders, and take pictures of the work. You can even export your jobs from My Shop Assist into QuickBooks as invoices. So if you're interested in improving operations at your shop, check out MyShopAssist.com to start your 30-day free trial. Okay, Matt. So let's talk some more about your business here. So tell us about GrimmSpeed. How big is the space you're in? Do you rent it or do you own it?
So we just in the beginning of 2015, moved to a new facility that was just about a block away from our old one, and we're in about I think 18,000 square feet right now.
Oh, so it's a big shop, huh?
Yeah, and actually we moved into it and we thought, oh, this is going to be great, for a long time, and now even today we're talking we're going to have to be out here probably in 2 years, and even in the meantime we're going to need some offsite storage or an offsite facility even to get us to that point. Okay. So
is that space filled with like inventory, or can you kind of break it down? What do you have in 18,000 square feet?
Yeah, so about 20% of it is office space, and we have kind of a little showroom in the front. We do have walk-in customers periodically, okay. Conference room, that sort of thing. We have a welding and fabrication department. We've got 4 full-time TIG welders, and we have the space for them to be moving pallets of raw materials and piece parts and racks of completed assemblies around. That's probably another 20%. 20% is R&D space. So, lifts, shuffling cars around. Okay. Sometimes they're drivable, sometimes they're not. And then the remainder is half raw materials and half inventory.
Okay, so there's a lot of space for that. Okay.
Yeah, but we're filling it up pretty good.
All right. Have you guys ever written a formal business plan? And if you did, are you on target with it?
I would say that the answer is no. We haven't written a formal traditional business plan. Okay. We're actually working on kind of something like that right now, just because we're growing and there are so many decisions to be made. We really need guidelines. Uh-huh. But with that said, we're very data driven. And so every month we track quite a few metrics and KPIs, and we evaluate them mostly based on historical data. So we've been doing this for a while. So between myself and Matt and Justin, we've got a really good feel for what's healthy and what's not as far as these metrics go. And then we kind of can adjust based on how those metrics look. But certainly we'll benefit from having a more definitive plan.
Okay. How many? You said you had like 13 employees, you said? Is that right?
Yep, 13.
Okay, what are they all doing? I mean, kind of break it down like your workforce.
Yep. So myself and Matt Holmes are kind of the management, I suppose. Matt manages kind of all of our manufacturing and the day-to-day, everything that's happening and getting product built and out the door. We have 2 other mechanical engineers, so I dabble in that still when I can because it's really fun. But those guys are full-time developing products, testing products, that sort of thing, working with our manufacturing partners locally. 2 guys in customer service and sales. So when we say sales, it's really customer service. But they're answering phones, emails, processing orders, shipping orders, that sort of thing. 3 full-time TIG welders at the moment. Okay. And then 3 guys that are packaging product, doing QC, assembling small pieces. So, like if you receive a boost control solenoid, one of those guys, put the fittings in there, crimp the connector on it, packaged it, put it on our shelves. So that's,
and you guys have
really
a little card with their little initials on it. Is that, if I remember correctly, right? Yeah. Okay. So you are doing legitimate quality control.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Do you find it difficult to manage all those people?
Yeah, I do. I think, I'm really fortunate to have my colleague, Matt Holmes, who kind of manages on a day-to-day basis the manufacturing and assembly guys. He's really good at doing that. I sometimes get wrapped around the axle pretty quickly on some of that stuff and have a hard time identifying, how closely do I need to manage some of this stuff. But as far as like engineering goes, and I'm sorry, I missed an employee earlier. We have Alex in purchasing, so he does all of our purchasing and inventory management.
Okay.
But I really focus on working with him and our engineering department. A couple of years ago, my answer would have been definitely yes, and I hesitated just because right now we have a really, really solid team, and I've always struggled with delegating, and I'm not doing that anymore just because everybody under our roof I trust them 100% to do their job, and that's a really awesome feeling.
Okay. How many hours a week are you working?
So I actually typically try to keep my hours in the office to between like 40 and 50, to sort of maintain my own sanity and provide the illusion, I suppose, of a work-life balance. But it's not uncommon that I'll, get home from work and make dinner, eat dinner with my wife, and maybe walk the dog, and then, you sit down on the couch and, there's no such thing as just kind of screwing around on the laptop anymore. So, I try to, outside of work is when I kind of try to do our marketing sort of stuff. So if it's writing product descriptions or researching or reading, keeping up with what's happening in the industry, that probably is another 10 or 15 hours a week.
Do you have a family or kids or anything like that?
A wife and a dog at the moment.
Okay. So you're not quite to the point where you're going to have to give up all your extra time, right?
No, and I'm aware of that. So I'm trying to really capitalize on my ability to stretch myself a little bit thinner now than I probably will be able to in the future. Okay,
we'll ask you this, though. Has your wife made you cut back hours? Like, have you ever worked like the 80, 100-hour weeks that people say they work?
80 or 100 might be a bit of a stretch, mainly because just I know that I'm more efficient if I'm functioning, on a really high level, and that doesn't happen if I'm 70 hours into a work week.
Yeah, agreed.
But no, she's really understanding, and she knows the risk that really we both took when I left BAE.
Okay.
And so, but certainly there are weeks where, you feel like you're working all week. And one of the things too that I've learned as I've kind of had taken on more of a management role is that, my brain never really shuts off. And so, actually my wife and I went and took a trip to Central America this spring, and it was kind of the first time in as long as I can remember that I had a stretch of days, multiple days, where I could kind of disconnect and really feel relaxed. Okay. So
I need to do one of those here.
But I'll tell you what, I came back and I went back to work on Monday, and I was expecting to feel like really refreshed and invigorated, and I was just like, you just kind of right back to it.
Right.
So
okay. Yeah, I don't feel the same when I get back from vacations. I feel like, oh crap, I'm way behind, gotta go. Okay. Do you spend your time doing most of the work, or is it like managing the business? Sounds like you're more on the management side and not just slugging away at whatever it is, designing parts or that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I would say that. I think I would say that I probably straddle the line about 50-50. I'm a really hands-on person, and really not a day goes by where I'm not either out with our other engineers under the lift, poking around some new, prototype or a pre-production part, or shooting product photography or meeting with, any other employee. So I don't really spend a lot of time just sitting at my desk. But I'd like to move in that direction, because it's when I have time to actually sit down and really focus on some of kind of the bigger picture stuff is when I'm more productive with that sort of thing.
Okay. And do you think the pay justifies the time spent?
Yeah. Yeah, I was, like you mentioned, it's a big change going from a large government defense contractor, but it's really it's a learning opportunity, and every single day there's something new or a new challenge, and so that really very easily makes up for any discrepancy there. It's kind of like an MBA crash course.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
And your company's big enough where cash flow is a little more consistent than, say, like a 1 or 2 person shop, where one month you may have nothing and the next month you have money coming out of your ears. But you're able to write yourself a consistent paycheck, and everybody gets paychecks every week or 2 weeks, whatever it may be. And so you have a more reliable, you're to the point where the company is a reliable source of income.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And since day one, since the day I started, that's been the case.
Okay.
So, and it's been a really important thing. And Justin has always stressed that, we really work hard to bring people on board and have employees that consider GrimmSpeed to be a career. And so that's part of the reason that we work a lot on employee development. And it's the reason that I am where I am today is because we're true to that. But if we have a slow month in welding, we just find other work for those guys.
Okay.
We never cut hours or anything like that.
Okay, so you guys you're definitely diversified enough where if one little area cuts back, you just move you guys over to a different area.
Yep.
Okay, and what's the primary tools in your trade? like give us an example of like what you're using to manage the business. How are you guys? Obviously, it sounds like you're using SolidWorks for designing stuff. Just kind of give us an idea of what you're using.
Yeah, on the engineering side, it's obviously it's a lot of SolidWorks. We use QuickBooks. We do a lot in Excel with tracking metrics and synthesizing some of the data that we collect. So I think those are probably really the big three.
Do you guys do any forecasting as far as like looking at production numbers for like a certain Subaru model and like how many percentage are going to be modified with your product? Do you do any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily as far as like production numbers from Subaru, but we do forecasting based on model year, make, model, market trends, that sort of thing, so that we know we're not building downpipes to order. If our inventory is low on downpipes, we'll make between 100 and 500 depending on the volume. So, but you got to be confident in that number and how many you think you're gonna sell 2 or 3 months down the road when those are on the shelf. So there's definitely some forecasting necessary there to avoid ending up with stale inventory.
Right. $100,000 in downpipes sitting on a shelf, right?
Yeah, you have to answer some tough questions when that happens.
Okay, so and your primary sources of revenue are obviously part sales, and it sounds like you're doing little to no service, and the little bit of service you do is just for development work, right?
Yep,
okay.
That's correct.
And then you're not doing any outside engineering. You guys don't do any like rebadging of your, I guess, your products for somebody else, any of that kind of stuff?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay, and so this is something I as I mentioned before we got started, was I wanted to touch on something that you're doing a pretty good job of, is you're working on trying to control map pricing for your products. And we've covered this with the Turn 14 interview on, it keeps the value of a brand higher if your product is not being hoarded out on eBay. So what are you guys doing to do that? And do you find a value in enforcing that? Is it something that is worth its time and effort?
Yeah, so I know you talked to Kyle Shelley, and he did a really nice job of explaining kind of the thought behind doing that. And we implemented that at the very beginning of this year. So we actually cut off all of our retailers and made them go through an authorization process with us. And to answer your question, we see major value in that. Of course, there was a little bit of a market adjustment, I'll call it, just as people are learning that, hey, look, you're not going to get a discount on GrimmSpeed products. And that's just kind of the way that it is. And I think people are seeing that now. But really, the reason we did it is of course, to maintain our brand value and the value of our products. We price things as aggressively as we can, really right out the gate. So nobody really needs to be getting a discount to have great value in buying a GrimmSpeed part. But also, it's really important to us that we're supporting the people that are really supporting us. And those are the people that are running shops. Like yourself, installing our parts, giving feedback, helping customers make good decisions. People that are dedicated retailers that are carrying inventory. And if somebody has a GrimmSpeed specific question or needs recommendations, they have people that are able to do that. Or if they need help, with installation or, there are so many people now that seem to be carrying less and less inventory and are not really providing, I'll call it GrimmSpeed level service. Mm-hmm. And really the GrimmSpeed, when you buy a GrimmSpeed product, you're buying a lot more than what's just in the box. We spend a lot of time on the packaging and our customer service and our pre-sale and post-sale support. We have a lifetime warranty. And if you're not buying from a really high quality retailer of some sort, you're kind of not getting the full value that we intend for you to receive when you buy a product of ours. Okay. So that's we're really happy with how that's working out. Okay,
and I've actually gone through the process too this year of becoming one of your, I guess, authorized resellers. So it was pretty straightforward. I just and so I actually buy your product through Turn 14 because I didn't even know you guys went direct. So through Turn 14, I had to go direct to you guys and send you an email with, I think it was on your webpage actually, maybe it wasn't an email, but you're providing pictures of an actual storefront, I guess the actual inside of the shop to verify that as a legitimate business. You asked the common question, which is like, give us 2 or 3 like industry people that you purchase through. I think that's what it was on there. So you're validating that you're an actual install shop and not just like an apartment reseller or eBay seller, right? That's kind of the thought process on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And, somebody like yourself where, we'll actually one by one, we go through those applicants and evaluate them. And somebody like, yourself and your shop it's really easy to identify that you're, a really legitimate business. So for you, that process was probably relatively painless and quick. Mm-hmm. For other people, it's not like that. And they have a harder time maybe convincing us if we haven't heard of them, or maybe they don't have a Facebook presence or a website. We don't count people out just if you don't have a website, because there are some really great shops out there that are not as connected, and they still serve their local customers really well. Those are people that we'll have a conversation with. Yeah. And even, you mentioned like somebody that's working out of their basement, drop shipping parts, there's a lot of negative stigma, I think, associated with that, and rightfully so, because a lot of those particular people are devaluing brands. But we're also, we're a small business ourselves, and we're also sensitive to the fact that some of those people might be working really hard to start a really great retail business. And right. So
that is true. Mm-hmm.
Those are the people that we really put more time into having a conversation. Matt Holmes does this. He'll call them and have a conversation with them and understand kind of their business plan, all of that sort of thing. And if it's somebody that we really believe in, we'll give them a shot.
Okay. So you're actually giving the little guys a chance too. It's not just, if you're doing it out of your apartment, you're done for. Because honestly, like I installed parts out of an apartment garage for probably a year as well. That's how I got my business started, was out of a garage. And I think a lot of the shops we've interviewed have said the same sort of thing. They start out of their garage and kind of work their way up. And if we immediately discount everybody who doesn't have an actual shop floor, then I guess there's really no way to get started without pouring a bunch of money into it, right?
Exactly. So we do put those guys through the ringer, and once you're authorized, we hold you to a really high standard. So in those cases, maybe half of them or 30% of them have already been deauthorized for one reason or another.
Oh wow, okay.
Unfortunately, but so it's not kind of like you sell us once and you're in. We're continually reevaluating. That shops and retailers are evaluating each other pretty consistently. So it's working really well for us, though. And we want to make sure that we're not cutting those small kind of underdog type guys out completely, because we were there not so long ago.
Right. So you're selling your product through, obviously we already said Turn 14. You're selling direct to shops as well, and you also do have a web presence for selling direct to consumers. So you're doing all three avenues, right?
Yeah, definitely our wholesale channel is our largest volume wise.
Okay.
Most of our direct to dealer relationships have grown from individuals or shops or retailers that we've been friends with for a long time.
Okay.
But we really don't. Our focus is really on designing, manufacturing the best possible products that we can, and that's where we funnel our resources. So to be able to rely on somebody like Turn 14 or Rally Sport Direct to...
Okay, you're also through Rally Sport. Okay,
Yep.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay.
They're experts at providing those logistics and that customer service. And so, we really like to work with people that are experts in what they're doing and continue to be experts in what we do. And we're just not logistics pros.
Okay. So you're really focused on just making the product and not so much trying to see how many different ways you can sell it. Giving that to the distribution places. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose there's probably a business case for focusing really heavily on one over the other, but, and maybe someday that's the case, but for now we're just having fun manufacturing products. And if we can do less of the legwork of getting them to our customers, then it leaves us more time and resources to make more cool stuff.
Okay. What kind of advertising and marketing are you doing?
So that's kind of a hot topic recently, because I think that our business is sort of outgrowing my own personal skill set as far as marketing goes. I mean, I kind of know just enough to be dangerous, probably to myself mostly. So we really rely heavily on just participating in the community and not in the typical kind of marketing sense, but just, we're all enthusiasts. We're genuinely interested in what's happening, whether it's with our products or somebody else's or, somebody's cool build. So we try and participate there, and we solicit feedback from our customers and potential customers on products. and we kind of have relied pretty heavily on that traditionally. What we're finding is that some of the engineering tools that we've had for a while are becoming so accessible that it's really easy, you know, to make pretty looking CAD pictures or 3D print, you know, what might be a mediocre product and make it look great on forums or on your blog and stuff. And so one of the things that we're kind of battling with right now is helping customers or potential customers understand the difference between what's kind of really a genuine, legitimate engineering effort versus what appears to be.
Okay. I gotcha. So you're actually having to step up, you know, like maybe 5 or 10 years ago, you could just post any SolidWorks rendering up and everyone would be amazed. But you're saying now that you can literally download like Fusion 360 for that's like $50 a month or something pretty inexpensive. Yep. And that can do essentially the same thing, right? And so you're having to step up your game as far as marketing goes. You know, the engineering is still going to be the same quality of level that you've done for however long, but you can't just take a picture of a CAD drawing and post it up anymore, huh?
Right. Yeah. So it's like, you know, like you said, the finished product, we're really confident in that. And we know that when a customer gets one versus the other, they can see a difference as well. Mm-hmm. But you have to get there. You know, they have to buy your product in order to have that experience. And really, once we have a customer that's had a great experience with the GrimmSpeed product, they continue to come back and they're asking us for, you know, it's the reason we're making catback exhaust. They're saying, you know, I really want this. I want, you know, I have your downpipe, I have your top mount intercooler. I want your exhaust. Please make that. But yeah, you know, like you said, I mean, we really focus on really high quality product development, and it's becoming harder to show that you stand out in that way, I think.
Okay. And so you obviously have a Facebook presence. You guys are obviously building and putting parts on cars. You get a lot of word of mouth because, I mean, at least for myself, I just tell everybody, buy the GrimmSpeed 3 port. You know, like that's the easiest way to do it, right?
Yep.
You're not doing any trade shows. I know we already said you're not going to be at SEMA. Do you do PRI at all?
So we don't do SEMA or PRI, and I know you and I kind of chatted about it, but it's, you know, those are such big audiences. It's really hard to know who's really interested. But we do. There are some really great Subaru shows nationally. And I know that when we're in Ford, we'll find the same thing. But we go to Wicked Big Meat in Connecticut, Rocky Mountain Subaru Festival in Colorado. We went to the first annual Subaru Nationals this year in Chicago. And those are places where we can, you know, really be face-to-face with between 200 and 8. I mean, really, Wicked Big Meat had like 8,000 or 9,000 people there this year.
Okay, and they're all like literally your exact customers, so you don't have to go look for them; they're right there.
Exactly, and those are really a lot of fun too. It's not like kind of the exhausting trade show grind that I keep hearing about. I mean, they're, you know, we're enthusiasts, so we're really excited to be there and just interact with, you know, friends and customers.
And the cost of those meets is a lot less than going to a trade show as well, right? You just need a tent, you know, and bring some product with you, right?
Yeah. As long as you're making cool stuff, you know, you just kind of like put it out on a table and you're open to having conversations, and it really just it works. So.
Okay. What's something you guys do differently that makes yourself successful that you think others might not have thought about?
This is actually, so it's a question that I get, or we get, I should say, pretty frequently, and whether it's from people in the industry or like, you know, my family friends that don't understand that there's even an automotive aftermarket. But my answer is always kind of disappointing because there's no, I think, you know, I mentioned it earlier, there's no sort of secret sauce or, you know, black magic that's happening behind some fancy curtain that really makes it all work. It's, you know, we have a really great team, and, you know, that's harder than it sounds. It's really hard to hire really great people that fit and are really talented. And we have that. And then the other part of it is really just doing things the right way. You know, I think, and we've been, and the other thing is to remain agile. But, you know, when you start a business, you kind of have to cut some corners in order to just make it happen. But as we've grown, we've kind of identified those areas, and we've corrected them more or less. And so, like where product development is concerned, for example, I really live by the garbage in, garbage out sort of scenario where, you know, we take our time to do it right, which is why we're never really first to market, much to the dismay of our customers and stakeholders. But for me, that's fine because it means that we're releasing a better product. Like when we designed our downpipe, we 3D scanned the working envelope of the cars that part was intended to fit, and then we 3D scanned maybe 8 or 10 stock downpipes. And if anybody local is listening to this, they recall, and I'm in Subaru, like, hey, does anybody, we're looking for 7 STI top mount intercoolers or whatever, in order to quantify the tolerances that Subaru allows in their manufacturing. And so that's not something you can benefit from in product design if you're not doing that. Okay. A lot of people might measure one downpipe and assume that, okay, well, if I can replicate that fitment, I'm good to go. But that's really not necessarily the case.
Okay.
So things like that, I think, are really what set us apart as far as just the final product.
Okay. And this is going to be off script as far as questions I had written for you, but it sounds like you've got a really strong team. Can you kind of go into your hiring process? How do you make such a strong team? Because, I know a lot of shops can't say the same as far as like how cohesive and strong their team is.
Yeah, so I think it's, you mentioned earlier that we try to kind of work smart, but I think really as far as the hiring process, it's by brute force. We work hard to, when we create a job listing, to reach the right people, whether it's on Facebook groups or targeted advertising or forums or even personally reaching out to people. And then, we give a lot of people a lot of consideration. So we recently hired a mechanical engineer, and I probably reviewed no less than 60 resumes. I had phone conversations with 20 or 30 people. We had in-person interviews with, I think, 9. We had a second interview with our final guy. We had them do a small project, kind of a take-home project. And he met the rest of the engineering team. And then at that point, we decided to bring him on board. And it's worked really well, but there's not really a shortcut there.
Okay, so you're actually just talking to these people in person and kind of running them through a few steps to make sure they can do what you need. You're not just hiring the first guy you see that meets your qualifications.
No, and even the engineering is not necessarily a great example because that's so technical. But even the guys that are packaging our products and doing QC and assembly, we go through the same process with them because we're hoping that they grow into maybe our manufacturing manager someday or something like that. So, it kind of goes back to helping provide people with a career. And we've worked really hard we have a 401k, we have health benefits. We've got other great benefits. So, that goes a long way to getting the right people on your team as well.
Right. And it's important because engineers they're making a lot more than $10, $15 an hour. So when you hire somebody, there's a lot at stake to making sure it's the right person. Because training as well is also expensive, getting them to understand your product and know how to develop what you want.
Yep. Yeah. And we're not perfect. We've made bad hires in the past, and we've been able to correct some of those, but some of them are, it's really hard to fix something that is fundamentally bad or wrong. So I think identifying that is also, it's painful, but it's also really important.
Okay, let's take another break here, and then we'll continue on with
Do It For a Living is to give you insight
to how others have become successful in this industry. Another thing we created to help with this is our Essentials of Operating a Shop seminar. This new class from EFI University is a one-day management seminar to help aftermarket automotive shop owners operate their business more efficiently. We cover various topics including employee management, accounting, marketing, purchasing capital equipment, and many more. We're holding our next class in Indianapolis, Indiana at the PRI show on December 7th. For more information, go to EFI101.com and check out the Essentials of Operating a Shop page. And be sure to use coupon code DIFAL for $50 off when you sign up. All right, Matt, so we're back. We want to talk about, what you struggle with in business and how do you deal with it?
I think I kind of in a roundabout way answered this question earlier, I guess by accident, but it's really right now it's our marketing, and we're learning that, you can only rely on how great your products are for so long. And I think, we've outgrown a little bit the small kind of grassroots, feel that we have, despite the fact that we are still, very small. But so really developing our marketing program is something that's, is a really important thing right now. And it's not from a traditional, I think, kind of marketing and advertising sense, but finding a way to really educate our potential customers and help them understand, the things that are important to them, and how our product might be able to fit, or maybe isn't a fit for that sort of thing. So, we every time you fix or you struggle with something, and then you figure out what the solution is to that hurdle or speed bump, and you get over it, and then there's just another one right there. So it's kind of, in a strange way, it's comforting to know that, like, if I fix this problem, I'm just going to like tackle another one. And it helps, I think, reduce, for me anyway, the stress of, one particular challenge.
Okay. Makes sense. What's your 1-year plan for the business?
1-year plan is to get our EcoBoost lineup shipping.
Okay. And then
really, in short,
a 5-year plan?
Our 5-year plan is not as well defined, but that's kind of by design. So we focus really heavily on remaining agile and flexible, and part of that is the way that we do our manufacturing locally and in-house when we can. And we're continuing to bring manufacturing in-house, but really continuing to work with really our local manufacturers. We have really great partners that have, millions of dollars in equipment, and we work with them to design products that make use of that equipment. And I think that's one of the things that sets us apart, but trying to find a way to balance that with also having control over our manufacturing process. So I think one of our 5-year, I guess, one of the pieces of that plan would be to bring more manufacturing actually in-house under our roof.
Okay. So you're actually staying adaptive, but you do have, you are looking a lot further than 1 year. You're understanding what you need to do to be more profitable, and that's bringing in manufacturing as well as what products you need to move forward developing.
Yep.
Okay. So we like to take action on Do It for a Living. Can you suggest an action item our listeners can take away that can improve their situation?
Yeah. So I guess that kind of depends on the listener. If you're a person that wants to be in the industry or wants to pursue something in a different area, I really think the old kind of like chase your passion bit of advice is, it's so cliched maybe that some people write it off, and I did, but it's really true and it really works. I'm aware that I've been fortunate enough to have worked out, and that there was certainly a chance that it didn't. But it's just so exciting, and it makes work so much more fun. And not just that, but you do better, and you get smarter, and you build a skill set that you're happier with because you're applying it to something that you really enjoy. So, I don't think if I had joined a business that made toaster ovens that I would be the president of it today, because some people care about toaster ovens. I'm not one of those people. So, but I think, I hardly feel qualified to be giving advice to my peers in the industry, just because I've met so many people that I consider to be so much wiser than I am. But I think as one lesson that I've learned as GrimmSpeed's grown and matured as rapidly as it has in the last few years is back to remaining agile and to resist getting comfortable. I think if you're willing to evolve, that's a really important thing. The things that you might credit today for getting your business from point A to point B may need to change or be eliminated entirely to get you to point C or D or E. We've seen that as you grow, customer expectations change, the competitive landscape changes, technology changes, everything changes. So if your business is not changing, it just doesn't make sense.
Right.
So I think and we've learned those lessons the hard way, and we're benefiting from having done so.
Okay.
So.
All right, so let's move on to the quick answer questions here. These are just think of whatever comes to mind first.
Sure.
Tell us a game-changing product you've seen in the last year.
I think electric vehicle technology and autopilot and that sort of thing is really, maybe not necessarily in our industry, but I think that's really exciting thing to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I'm going to go off topic on this first question. I actually just read an article about the auto company. They're like a offshoot of Google's self-driving car that's now owned by Uber. They had the beer truck drive from like Denver to Colorado Springs or something, totally autonomous. And that was an aftermarket system. And what I think is intriguing about this, and in you saying it as not necessarily down the racing market, but it is certainly a aftermarket product that shops of our type actually suits us very well because it's a high technology. very integrated system for these cars that your run-of-the-mill Joe semi-shop is not going to be capable to install. And I think, in my opinion, I think shops looking forward, if they need like something to think about or a new product to install, this is definitely one of them that I think in the next probably 5 years will be something that people are going to be needing to have done.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting to see that it's actually, we've been hearing about it for 20 years, but it's really exciting to see it being applied on the road, the same roads we're all driving on.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's really close. Okay, so back to our quick answer question. Sorry about that. What's some software you're using daily?
SolidWorks and Microsoft Excel are the two easy ones.
Do you have a favorite phone app that you use daily?
I don't use a phone as really as a tool, but as far as communication goes, we use Slack for inter-office messaging, and it's a really nice way to have connectivity without just screaming across the office.
I like Slack. We use it too. Okay. What's your favorite shop tool?
Our Faro arm. So our 3D scanning Faro arm is amazing. I don't even know how people did the job that we do right now. Before that, frankly.
Okay, and the Faro arm is it's not a touch one. It's a laser scanner. Is that correct?
So it can do both. We actually prefer the touch or the probing because instead of collecting an entire cloud of data, you can kind of really narrow in on what's important to you.
Okay. And what kind of car are you driving right now?
So I think we mentioned this. I've got an F-150 EcoBoost, the 2.7 twin turbo, but then my project is a 2006 STI.
Okay, so you do have a track car or whatever you're racing.
Yeah, I don't know what I call it, but it's something. It's broken in my garage right now.
Sounds exactly like my project car.
Yeah, but I don't know if I'll ever be able to part with that. So
okay. And what do you think the future of automotive performance is going to be?
Kind of like we talked about. I think it's electric vehicle technology, and I think that's probably not a 5 or 10 year thing for folks like us, but it certainly is in my peripheral vision.
Okay.
As far as kind of something to keep an eye on.
So you're going to have the front license plate mount for a Tesla Model S here soon, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I actually would believe it too, because that front bumper is pretty smooth, and there's probably nowhere to bolt it to, right?
Yeah. You wouldn't want to drill holes in it. I certainly wouldn't. So
okay. And how do we connect with you and your company?
GrimmSpeed.com is a really great way to do it. We're all available on phone or email as well. So you give us a call and just ask for anybody, and we'll answer.
Okay, Matt, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and share your story.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we just talked about at our website, doitforaliving.net. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Click subscribe. Do it now.